Hey there everybody, PT Pop. All four lobes of my brain securely bound behind my back. And today I'm going to talk about a comment that one of my viewers by the name of Amani made on one of my videos. Today talking to you as I sit in the parking lot waiting for a doctor's appointment. And I wanted to follow up with you and finish up this video. I started this video twice now, but I've had a lot of technical problems with cameras. I had one, my Sony A6500 just took a dump. It died on me, so I had to send it back to Sony. And I've been real busy. I'm working on a documentary. I've been working on it for about 6 weeks now. It's taken up a lot of my time. The documentary is going to be called The Artist, a documentary. And it's a documentary that just follows the lives of 3 separate artists working in 3 different mediums to try to give the general public a better view of what it's like to really live the life of an artist. But today I'm recording to you on my iPhone because I don't have a decent camera anymore to record my videos to, but I think you'll get the gist of it. So if you're interested in supporting my channel, please hit the subscribe button at the bottom. Give me the thumbs up, the snooto. If you want to support my channel financially, I don't ask for money, but if you want to buy some of my artwork, I have music for sale on Amazon and on iTunes, or on Apple Music, what it's called now. I have 3 books for sale. One is called Press One for Murder, which is a book of fiction about a guy that works in a call center and the police think he's killing off his customers. And my 3rd book is called Small, which is a book about a guy that's 50 years old and he hates his life and he wants to be 10 years old again, and he meets a gypsy hooker and gets to travel back in time after she casts a spell upon him. So you can buy my books, buy my music, and check out my podcast. I also have a podcast which is called PT Pop, A Mind Revolution, and you can listen to that on just about any podcast platform that you search for it under. And I haven't made an episode there in a couple of weeks, but I'm going to get back to it probably tonight. But anyway, my video today is from a comment that one of my viewers, and I'm not going to say your full name, but one of my viewers and one of my subscribers, her name is Amani. And Amani watched my video, Working in a Call Center Sucks, Run Away. And in her comment, she wrote, "Call centers are mental abuse." And she says they can do harm to your subconscious mind. She says, "After 5 years of working in a call center, I went through a mental breakdown." Amani, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's awful. It's really terrible. I'm so sorry. She has all kinds of anxiety, depression. She's semi-OCD, or obsessive compulsive. She became angry. She became a very angry and unhealthy person from working in the call center. And she feels that federal law should look into passing laws. I'm assuming what you mean, Amani, is you should think the federal government should look into passing laws on the working conditions of a call center. And I just wanted to address your comment because, number one, I'm very sorry to hear you've gone through such a horrible time in call centers, because they are atrocious places to work. And for most of us, it's a very difficult place to work, and it's very taxing on us mentally and emotionally. There are those few rare individuals who survive in call centers and it doesn't affect them. And I hear from them all the time in my comments. I'd say 95% of my comments on all my call center videos are positive, in favor of my message of saying call center work sucks. I get those people to say I'm a wimp, or I'm a pussy, or you're just not cut out for the job, or you know what you're talking about, or you're just not trying hard enough. All those people, alleged people. They could be bots, I don't know. But the bottom line is, Amani, that you're completely right. It's a god-awful and atrocious working environment. And it causes most people that work in them a lot of stress. And I appreciate your comment wholeheartedly, because most people like friends and family say, well, just go get a job in a call center again. You can work again. I'm like, no, I can't do it again. I can't even face it. I've tried it, as all of you know, I've tried it a couple times the last couple of years, and it's just the minute I walk in the door of these places, it's awful. It's just an awful experience. As far as the federal government overseeing these call centers or passing laws to make it a better work environment, I looked into that a lot when I worked in them, and it turns out that these places are meeting all the federal standards and regulations that the federal government's put forth for a work environment. I don't think there's any laws in place for call centers, but because the call centers are living by the guidelines of the federal government for working standards, just in general, for OSHA and EEO and all this stuff, they're not going to take too much more of an effort to look into it, because right now they're living by the federal guidelines of having 2 15-minute breaks and a half-hour lunch. They're living by the guidelines. The companies don't have to do any more than that. I don't think the federal government's going to swoop in any place in the United States and change it, because here's what you have to understand. The corporations that have these massive call centers have bought and paid for every politician that's out there. So if there's a politician they know of that might be a watchdog for the call center environment, that might want to get them unionized, that might try to move to get them reorganized so they had a better working environment, they've paid for them. They've bought and paid for their hookers, they've bought and paid for their drugs, they've slipped money into secret bank accounts so they can put their kids through college. The politicians in this country, they look real nice, and they smile, and they have a nice toupee, and they have a pretty wife, and they have the 2.5 kids and a Labrador Retriever, but they're all bought and paid for. They're crooks and they're criminals, and I don't care if they're black, I don't care if they're white, I don't care if they're men or women, Democrats, Republicans, Independent, they're all crooked, and they're all bought and paid for. So these major corporations have gone in, and they've made sure that the politicians stay silent, and don't bother them about the call centers. Another thing you have to consider is that these call centers are an afterthought. And I'm being a bit facetious when I say that, but from my experience, the call center is something that is a necessary evil for the corporation to survive, because corporations now are so massive and so huge with such a large customer base. It's a necessary evil to appease, quote, the savages. And by the savages, I'm referring to all the customers that have signed up for any corporation services. So basically, the call center is something they have to have. They don't really want to have it because it costs the corporation billions of dollars a year just to run the call center. If not billions, in the high millions. And it costs a lot of money to have all the data circuits in there. It costs a lot of money to have all the phone lines, all the computers, the constant turnover, the constant retraining of people. It's just it's a revolving door, and it's a negative cash flow. It's a negative cash flow. It doesn't bring them in any money. And I apologize. I went to hit a notification on my screen, and my whole thing went kaplooey. So when I say it's a negative cash flow, the call center is hemorrhaging money for the companies. They're making them lose money, and that's why all the call centers now want you to try to upsell, because they try to offset the losses. They try to get every call center rep to sell a new subscription or a new credit card or extend a phone contract, things like that, because they're trying to justify the call center by getting each rep to sell something. And the more they sell, the more they kind of offset the loss on the bottom line. So the call centers are really a pain in the ass for most of these corporate people, the higher ups. You can't quote me on this because I've never talked to a chief executive officer and said, hey, what do you think of call centers in your corporation? Are they good? Are they bad? Do you like them? Are they a thorn in your side? I bet you they would say they were a thorn in their side. So the third thing you've got to consider is, if there was a chance that any of the major American corporations could be investigated by the federal government for unethical work practices, you can bet your bottom dollar that the higher-ups would find out about the investigation ahead of the investigation ever taking place. And then what happens is they offshore the call center to another country, such as India or the Philippines or Indonesia or Vietnam, places like that, or Mexico, where they hire another company to take the calls for the American company. So the American company calls up somebody in India, a BPO, they're called BPOs, and they say, hey, would you take my call center work from me? And the BPO says, yes, here's how much it'll cost you. It'll cost you $100 million a year to have us take your calls. And let's say that corporation is already spending $200 million a year on their call center in America. It'll save them $100 million a year by offshoring it. The offshore company in India takes over the calls. They redirect the calls, so when you dial 1-800-XYZ Corporation, the calls are automatically rerouted overseas to India now. And we all know, we can tell by their accents and things like that. And the reason, one of the major reasons, other than financial savings, that these corporations do it is so they can bypass the federal laws and get tax breaks. Not tax breaks. They can bypass the federal laws, and they don't have to be harassed by people in Congress saying you've got unethical work practices, because now their calls are being taken by a company that's overseen by India's work laws, which America has, American businesses can't do anything about that. So they offshore it to employees and businesses in India and Pakistan and Bhopal and all those places. And so now those places, it's like they wipe their hands clean of having to worry about all the federal laws and regulations and investigations for unlawful work practices. You see, these corporations, as I've said, are evil. They're evil, and they do not care about you. And I'm not just talking about call centers. I'm talking about corporations in general. Their primary goal is to please the investors, to please the board, to make as much money for the people that create the products, and to keep the CEO and the CIO and the CFO and all these people keep money in their pockets, so they can go out and buy yachts, and they can buy jet skis, and they can have hookers, and they can go out and buy islands and stuff like that. They do not care about you as an employee. I've experienced it at all levels. When you walk through the doorway of any corporation as an employee, you're forfeiting your rights of an American citizen when you go to work there. You have to live by their laws. You have to live by their rules and regulations, their methods and procedures. And if you don't like it, they'll either fire you or they'll walk you out the door. So Amani, I'm not trying to be discouraging to you, but to sit there and think we can get some big Norma Ray type thing going on, or some type of big movement where we can get the rules and the regulations changed for call centers. It's a nice thought, but I don't think it's realistic, because these corporations have already prepared for that. They're aware of it, and they're doing the bare bones minimum that the federal government requires by law, and so nobody's going to bother them, unless you get a call center that walks out one day, and like if you get a 1,500-man call center, everybody walks out and signs a petition for the federal government or something like that. I'm not advising this, because you'll lose your job. But if you get 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000 people that work for the same company in one call center saying, our work environment is dreadful, you've got to get somebody to look at it. And trust me, the government will drag it out, and they'll drag it out, and I'm not the government, the corporations will drag it out and drag it out and drag it out until everybody forgets about it, or it gets too expensive and nobody wants to bother with it. They'll drag it through the courts, and they'll drag it through the courts, and drag it through the courts to the corporate attorneys, and the federal government just throw up their hands and say, well, we're at a standstill, we're at a dreadnought. Nothing can be done. So, Monty, I really feel for you. I've been there. It's a horrific experience. In my entire life, of all the call centers I've worked in, I've only been in one or two good ones, and one of the best ones I was in was a privately owned, family-owned company and there were 6 people in my call center, and it was business calls I took from business customers. The worst is the general public. The general public calling the call centers is just god-awful. And all I can say to you is I feel for you. I appreciate your patronage. Thank you for subscribing to my channel and watching my videos. All I can do is, if say to you is, if you're still in one, use that experience to get something better. Use it to finance college. Use it to plan for opening your own business. Use that time off the phones to plan for something else. These call center jobs are not meant to be careers, even though they sell it to you that way. Let me see if I covered everything on here for you. Yeah, I've experienced the anxiety, the depression. I've experienced OCD. I became picking at myself, incessantly picking at myself and stuff. I became very nervous. That's me. That happened to me. When I was in Arizona, I was working at the big call centers. Like when I was at Verizon, I was very angry. I was angry all the time. I was angry with the world. I hated everything. I was always fighting with my wife. Not fighting, not physically, but yelling and getting upset. There was a lot of problems I had at home because of these jobs. And it wasn't just the jobs. It was, some things going on with me too. So hang in there. And I wish there was some magical thing I could say to make this better, to make you feel better. But there's not. You've either got to grin and bear it or just get out and go do something else. And I don't know what the alternative is. Because in my life, since I've been working since the age of 10, I've delivered newspapers, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in a factory, I've worked in call centers, I've worked in telecommunications, I've worked in outside sales. I've done just about everything. I've written, now I do my creative stuff, but my creative stuff doesn't make anywhere near enough money to support my wife and I. So, I don't know what the answer is. Retail sucks. Working in restaurants, it sucks, because most of the restaurant people that run these places are maniacs. Yelling and screaming and cursing because every day they have to bring a certain amount of money to keep the restaurant open. So I don't know what the answer is. If you find a place of good people that you work with and they're supportive and you make decent money and you can tolerate the work wherever that is, I would stick with it. But the call centers aren't the place for anyone. So that's it. Peace and love to everybody. I hope you're all doing well in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic or plandemic. Here in Cleveland, Ohio, I think it's September 10th, 2020. We're embarking on the anniversary of September 11th, 2001, when we were allegedly attacked by somebody. And so everybody here is talking about that again. Just like every December 7th, we talk about Pearl Harbor, and just like we talk about all the anniversaries of every war. It's like we glorify war in this country. It's very glorified. So, it's gray, it's spritzing outside, it's kind of rainy, and I'm about to go to the doctor to get a follow-up checkup for a physical I had about a month ago, which I did pretty good on. And I hope you're all doing well, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.